The Negro Sanhedrin, a clearinghouse and union of organizations by Kelly Miller. There must be a clearinghouse through which pool all the interests of which our organizations hold in common. The Negro Sanhedrin is not so much an organization as an influence. It is rather a union of organizations which can speak with the consent and authority of all of them. To the race in the United States, greetings. At the beginning of the year 1923, I presented a proposal for the Negro Sanhedrin, or All-Race Conference, to take other serious considerations the state of the race. The suggestion was enthusiastically approved by the Negro press and public opinion. The merits of improvement has been discussed in all forms and phases during the past 12 months. The progress of the events during the intervening year has made it a necessity of the suggestions of the more apparent. The rapid spreads of the Ku Klux, the Negro migration north, and the defeat of the dire anti-lynching bill and agitation out of the Garvey movement were the chief happenings of racial moments of the year just closed. Other features of racial life and interests are moved more or less uneventful. When do we not progress? We retrograde. None of the events described have brought us near the desired goal. It would indeed be fortunate if we allow another year to pass without some effective comprehensive program that should be adequate in the tangling of the confront of us. We cannot go on in this hesitant, uncertain, and different way. The Negro Sanhedrin is a big proposition for the new year, and indeed the establishment of this body will mark the 1924 as an epochal year in the history of the race. The plans of the Sanhedrin are more fundamental and more far-reaching than any project set forth since Reconstruction. Let us not indulge in the vain promises and wild prophecies which are apt to characterize new movements, but rather let us invite a careful consideration of the aims, objects, and the method of the Sanhedrin proposal, and let one reach its own deliberate conclusion. The mind of the people was in a messianic mood. All were looking forward to the coming of some plan of race reclamation that could be more effective than those already in operations. No one can claim ownership of the idea because opponents of my zeal and activity interests have the rest. I have claimed no genius of discovery or no pride of priority. Many were thinking the same thing as the same thing. I have but focused on the sense of the people giving the utterance to the cast of the statements. But I am but a crying voice aloud unto the people. Happily they might hear and hear my heed. February 11 in Chicago, 6 civil rights organizations have joined in the issue of the call to the Negro Sanhedrin of All Race Conference to meet in the city of Chicago during the week of February 11, which, interestingly enough, is the birth week of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. The arrangements have been placed in the committee for those plans, and details are surely to be announced. The Negro Sanhedrin will not be a mass meeting, but a conference of organizations supplemented by a minority of distinguished individuals representing a large part of different parts of the country and from different walks and ranks of life. All type of organizations and agencies functions nationally will be included. Religious denominations, civil rights societies, secret societies, and benevolent orders, business and social reform agencies will sit down in common council. Thus, it's hoped to secure a representative body that can speak to the will of the voice of the authority of the whole race. Not a segmented organization can do this. Neither can anybody that's composed solely of individual responsibilities. The thoughts and hope of the prayer of the entire race are designed and to focus on the Sanhedrin session in Chicago, that they may measure up to the requirements of the occasion of such an omnibus this time. Presidential election. The presidential election takes place during the fall of the incoming year. Much stress is placed on the outcome, and a great effort will be expended to corral the nigger vote. The spellbinders will strive to convince us that the triumph of this party are the spells of the salvation or the degradation of the Negro race. But little reliance can be placed on the pronouncement that the politicians had in quest of the votes. We have heard such assurance and prophecies before. We cannot be unswerved by the pursuit of permanent and inefficient racial plans by the incendiaries of heated political campaigns. Individuals will choose their party innovations accordingly in local circumstances from the present party and principles of party policies, but not so far concerning the fundamental problems involved in Negro adjustment to the great white world developed, and makes literally comparatively little difference in which party it triumph or what candidate tickets. We should contend as the best with disenfranchisement, crawlers, segregation, lawlessness, and a prescription of regardless who sits in the White House. President Calvin Coolidge was good enough and bold enough to be Negro in his message to Congress. At the same time, he was frank enough to advise not look for federal government for any further fundamental relief. Either, in my judgment, he was not expected as president to hope for local reliance. In fact, the Negro must not no longer look to the federal government or local dependencies for the chief agency of racial development. He must look to himself. After helping win the victory for his party, the Negro naturally enough looked for his share of fruits of victory according to the rules of the game. He is entitled to crumbs of patronage and an official favor that fall from the tables of power, yet he has to be helped. After 40 years of sad experience, abundantly convinces that the most light interest of the race as if it was little fingers of the left hand. Let us not be slanted too far from imitating and dealing with our own problems by the exciting issues of the proper approaching campaign. The pre-elections and post-election disappointments we can foresee in this count in light of 40 years of unwavering experience, let none of these come to utter devotion and enthusiasm aims to the Negro Sanhedrin. Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey and the United Improvement Association, under the leadership of Marcus Garvey in a Pan-African Conference, the outgrowth of Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, are calculated to focus ultimately on the continent of Africa. The Sanhedrin, on the other hand, is limited to the situation to the race in the United States. The American Negro cannot differ and be incurious to the race as a world entity. But whatever the fate may be, whatever the America to that fate, he must show his competence to domestic problems before he can assume leadership and direction of the millions of his blood now dispersed over the face of the earth. I am frequently asked to explain how the Negro Sanhedrin will differ from existing agencies and organizations now in operation. It is pitiably true that the race is overburdened with organizations. They rise and flourish and fade as leaves on the trees, yet we are not saved. Half our energies are wasted by rivalries, jealousies, and duplications of other functions and overlapping work. The crying need is for something harmonized and a medium that can reduce these fractional agencies for the common denominator. There must be a clearinghouse through which we can be pulled all interests which they held in common. The Negro Sanhedrin is not so much an organization as an influence. It is rather a union of organizations which can speak with the consent and authority of them all. Let me illustrate the need of a Negro Sanhedrin as well as the distinctive functions by situations now reaching the acute stage in the District of Columbia. The Supreme Court nullified segregation ordinances devised by sundry municipalities. Various cities are now testing their wits to devise some method of circumventing this decision. White property owners in the nation capital have taken the lead. The convents of segregation are now being tested in local courts. Even every Negro in the nation virtually concerned with the outcome, for these convents are declared legal in the capital of the nation, and they will triumphantly imitate in every city of the land. The unifying agency. We have in the city of Washington the National Association of Advancing the Colored People, the Equal Rights League, the Race Congress, the National Sociology Association, the Masons, the Odd Fellows, the Elks, and Knights of Pariah, branches of the great religious denominations, and every conceivable kind of description of organization imagined can depict. And yet the Negroes in the city have not raised $200 to defend their constitutional rights. So as far as one organization alone has made any effort to push the case, a single race lawyer named James A. Cobb, Esquire, has had to assume the burdens and tread the windspan alone. The Negroes of Washington can and will defend their rights at a cost of $100, $10,000, or $100,000 if united appeal could be made through some central authoritative agency. Such is the function of the Negro Sanhedrin. Let every race-loyal Negro rally to its standard. A pamphlet set forth of the movement in full detail and the history of the progress of the races of the Negro Sanhedrin will be issued in a few days. So this is the organization that this is the organization that Kelly wanted to set up, which never really got across because of certain other aspects that happened. And plus, the bourgeoisie of the crowd, which I can show later in later videos, took over the movement and wanted to do certain other stuff that other groups did not want to do. This group had many people in it. As you see, it was against Garvey. They didn't really want to jump on a national effort. They wanted to stay in the United States and stay in the realm of national politics instead of the international realm. But this is kind of stuff, it never really got off to his feet, as I said before. Kelly Miller never really made it happen because of the greed of the Washington crowd, which they thought they was elitists. So the NAACP and all them kind of hauled up the money. But this kind of organization we had, in the beginning, that's not really talked about amongst ourselves. That's not really even well known amongst ourselves. I got a lot more in this organization. I'm going to spit to it. Hopefully y'all enjoy it. About the Negro Sanhedrin. Another thing too was they didn't want to really get down in the dirty in the street level. Something, you know, the bourgeoisie don't really want to get down with. But Kelly Miller was a good guy. You know, went to Howard. He was, you know, head of the Howard mathematician department. Got a couple of his writings. You know, subscribe to the channel. Much love to all of y'all, and peace, and have a wonderful day.